everybody, welcome back to the Mind Method Podcast. I am so excited for today. We have with us a guest that is going to blow your mind, Jamil Damji. Jamil, thank you so much for joining our podcast. Before I let you go, I am going to intro this man because this man deserves a ton. And I had to go online for like hours, and I'm like, what's the best way that I can intro a guy who has done so much stuff? So, Jamil, I'm going to try because you are, man, your story, I've heard you speak in person. We've met in person multiple times, and your story, your journey is profound. You've accomplished so many things. So I'm going to try my best to do you justice. So Jamil is the host of A&E's Triple Digit Flip on TV. I've seen the show. It's awesome. He is the co-founder of Kegley, a nationwide franchise wholesale business. And if you don't know Jamil, he's done over 6,000 wholesale and fix and flip deals himself. 6,000, bro. That is massive.
Actually, 7.
Okay, 7. It was outdated info. I love that. He's also the visionary, which I love. I love that you're a visionary behind Astro Flipping, which is a community of wholesalers. You are the wholesale king in my mind, and you are also a beloved fellow Canadian. So, Jamil, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here and excited to chat.
Absolutely. So I want to just give our audience, because I mean, our audience is small and growing, but we have audience in Sub 2, Owners Club, up here in Canada. Maybe there's people listening who haven't heard of you, which is insane. But tell us your journey and how you have built what you've built in the real estate space.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I got started in wholesaling in Canada. I started in Calgary, Alberta, just kind of by accident, fell into an opportunity, and, you know, I didn't have any money at the time. And so I was able to buy a home for a specific price. And I was able to, I had a buyer for that property for $50,000 more. And I was just, you know, racking my head on who could lend me the money to try to purchase the house. And there was nobody. So after realizing that I wasn't going to get my hands on the physical funds, I had to see if there was another way to do it. And that's what led me to cold calling real estate attorneys, which then led me to an attorney who taught me the double close method. In Canada, you guys call it a skip transfer, or we call it a skip transfer. And I made my first wholesale deal and netted just over $47,000. And it blew my mind because I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, in Temple Northeast, which is, you know, a specific quadrant of the city, and it's known for being socioeconomically challenged. It has definitely been one of those parts of Alberta, Canada, and Calgary specifically, where, you know, very, very low income working class people live. Incredible family values there, beautiful humans. You know, I owe so much to the city and so much to the Northeast where I grew up, but it did definitely have me wanting more. And so on that journey, I stumbled into real estate, and in real estate came into the world of personal development. And that's where I was able to find this incredible blend between entrepreneurship, spirituality, personal development, and quantum physics. And in all of that, you find what I believe is a very interesting and beautiful way to take control of your life.
Wow. Very well put. I have to tell you, it's not every day that we come across another, and we are very much in the infancy of our real estate journey compared to you, but it's not often we come across someone who's in the real estate space who is also so in tune with the spirituality and the mindset and personal development side of things that are blending them together to have success on that side as well. So, I mean, kudos to you, and you are a trailblazer in the space. I know you are always giving back to the community. You're always giving back in the personal development space as well. So thank you for that. I want to ask you, what's the biggest thing that you learned in the personal development space that actually shaped and changed your life?
To go inside. Everything that you want isn't a product of what we do out here. Everything that you're looking for is a product of what you do in there. And that to me was the paradigm shift, right? Because you can work really hard, and if you ascribe to the Newtonian model where you've got to act force upon an object in order to move it, and you've got to pull an object to move it towards you, and it's when you liken it in terms of entrepreneurship, it's the Hermosi model, right? It's the don't sleep, work on the weekends, and the more you do, the more you'll achieve, which is true, right? There's absolutely universal truth to that, and the laws of nature and Newtonian physics will prove that is the case. So great. The other side of that is there's a way I feel, and I've been able to prove to myself through experimentation and observation and really trying to take a look at the results, where you can do more without having to do more, or you can achieve more without having to do more. And it's a process of attraction and alignment. And I hate saying that in a way, because there's this misconception out there that you just sit in a room by yourself and you dream and want all these things to happen, and one day the doorbell will ring and Ed McMahon will be outside of your house with a large check and balloon, right? Yeah. It's not that. It's a co-creative process that requires your participation in it. But what I've seen is, let's just take, for instance, if you're out there looking for a deal in real estate and you use cold calling as your lead generation technique. Well, you could sit down in 8 hours and talk to 50 people. And let's just say that that's the metric, the key metric on what that takes on a daily basis over a month or over 90 days in order to get your hands on a good deal, right? We know that through the things we do. Talk to 50 people a day, 5 days a week for 90 days, and it's impossible not to succeed. We know that. It's just that's how it plays out. Not too many people get to that, right? They quit before that happens. But what if the quitting happens because you literally need to be there pounding the phones, going ham, going hard. And through that whole process, you're going to run through the gamut of people that are going to be unkind to you, aggressive, and you'll have to sift through so much to get to what you're looking for. What if there was a way to, let's just say that was a haystack. What if there was a way to put a piece of, put a magnet above the haystack, the proverbial haystack, and you were able to just kind of lift the needle up to it? What if that was a process? And we know through magnetism and electromagnetism that that's doable. And so I propose that you could do the same thing, sit down, make 50 calls a day, 5 days a week, and it wouldn't take you 90 days if you did a little bit of preemptive work in the process. And that's where you align yourself to a frequency that matches the needle. And what ends up happening is you make less calls, and the needle travels to you as fast as you're traveling to it. Mm-hmm. And so what I found in that paradigm is not only in that 8 hours am I able to do more, but I find more needles because I don't have to run into so much hay in the process. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Totally. I love that you touched on the Newtonian law, because that's actually the mainstream, AKA logical way of looking at life. Right?
Correct.
It's a very tangible concept that people can get their brain around. It also goes in line with the I'll believe it when I see it theory, right? But what we're learning with quantum physics, and it's even stretching our concept of the theory of relativity, because in fact, like you're saying, it's not an input-output equation. It's not transactional where you have to trade your time for what you're going to get back, because we're learning through the law of attraction and its primary law, the law of vibration, that life is lived on frequencies, right? And in fact, when you work on what's happening inside of you, you can tune into different frequencies. And when you do that, you begin to draw to yourself the things that are on that same frequency. So for you,
Correct.
with the wholesale example, which is beautiful, you actually might not have to spend as much time cold calling and doing all of those things, because when you vibrationally change what's happening in your mind, you then become the magnet for whatever it is that's coming to you in a way that right now is not logical to most people.
Correct. Correct. And it goes so far as to say, you could have the same list. You could put two people doing it the same, working the same list at the same hours of the day. And what will happen, oddly enough, is if the one who did the work to change their frequency to match the frequency of an opportunity in what we're looking for, right? So if that person did a little bit of work to change their frequency to match that, the people who would answer that person's phone calls would be different. Mm-hmm. And that's where it changes, right? So the people who are answering the phone calls for the other individual in the desk is everybody, whoever sees it and hears the phone. And so you're going to go through so many no's, way more no's than you will the other way, because you're actually running into more of what is vibrating in your frequency. And the funny thing about that is we see examples of that in science all the time, right? Like attracts like. And I think that the reality is we keep getting told this, no, it's opposites attract. No, that's Paula Abdul's version of science. That's not actual science, right? The actual science is you put two droplets of water 6 inches apart from each other, wait a half an hour, and they become one. And that's because their electrons are attracting each other. And that is how it works, right? So when you can be like something, it finds you and you find it. And the interesting part about that is it just opens up a whole world of what's possible for human beings, because that, I believe, removes the limitations that we place on ourselves, because I think the limitations we place on ourselves is how am I going to get there? How am I going to find the needle in the haystack? It's just so daunting. And you literally will look like Alex Hermosi if you go through that process and do it that way. You'll turn into Popeye because you have to lift so much to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, because
sure, if some do, which is totally fine. I'm not knocking it at all. Listen, if I trust me, I would love to wake up in the morning and have his body. Right? It would be great. But the reality is that I'm too lazy for that. I like to kind of find what's looking for me, and I live in that paradigm, and I'm happy with it.
I love that. Jameel, I want to go back to your first comment. When you answered the first question, you said one of the biggest lessons and the biggest mindset shifts that you made in your life was learning that it starts from within. And that's something that we talk to our clients about all the time. It's actually something we're doing a new program right now, Lead the Field. I'm sure you're familiar with Earl Nightingale and his work in Lead the Field. And he very much teaches that. And it's one of the quotes from his teachings is, before you can have something or do something, you first must be something.
Yeah, the Goethe quote.
The German philosopher, right?
Goethe.
And he quotes that philosopher. I think he's a philosopher. Mm-hmm. Unreal. I love that quote. And what you said reminded me of that quote, because it really is that. And when you started describing what wholesalers do and like, let's say cold calling for lead gen, it reminds me of my early journey and mindset. When I started to have my paradigm shift, I stopped searching for deals. I stopped going on MLS. I stopped looking for deals. And I started focusing my attention on attracting the right people. And then all of a sudden, like you said, I started attracting the needle out of the hay, and deals started coming to me. And I never had to look. I closed 8 deals in 8 months and I never had to look for a deal. They all came to me. And learning that principle for us completely changed our entire lives. Yeah. So, I mean, I 100% like we're there on the frequency thing, because that's where we live every single day and focused on that. So
yeah, and realizing that your thoughts have energy. Your thoughts create an energetic, instantaneous communication, right? And so the more that you focus on your vibration and your thoughts, you will actually be able to communicate what it is that you want and have the ability to draw it closer to you. I'm curious, what does your spiritual self-care describe your daily practice? How do you incorporate it into your day-to-day?
So it's evolved. I mean, when I first got into this type of work, I was struggling. I was actually, struggling with my own personal demons, my own things. And, I knew I wanted more and was looking for more, but wasn't really sure on how to achieve that or, what that would look like. But I didn't have anything to lose. And so when you have nothing to lose, you try it all. And like throwing spaghetti at the wall, I wanted to see what stuck, and meditation stuck, right? And so it began with downloading the Headspace app, which, again, it's super, super baseline for anyone who's trying to get into meditation. It could be a good thing. I would more recommend some different apps like Insight Timer as a good beginner place to start. But for me now, what I've learned is that I want to try to slip into what they call the unified or quantum field faster than what I can typically create on my own. So if I sit down and close my eyes and relax myself in meditation, it's going to take me a minute. Not when I say a minute, I mean maybe half an hour, maybe 45 minutes before I can start to visually see what is going on in that place. And for me, I actually visually see it, right? I can visually see when I'm in there. I can see the waves. I see them moving. They're moving towards me. They're moving away from me. They're moving around me. I'm surrounded by it, and I'm in that spot. And I cease to kind of be Jamil in that place. I no longer remember or know who I am or what I am. I'm just in this. I'm conscious. I'm aware, but I'm in this spot. And being an American in our kind of impatient world that we live in, I thought there's got to be a faster, easier way for me to get into this, because this is hard, because I'm sitting here with my eyes closed for 45 minutes. My back hurts, my knees hurt, and that's whipping me out of the spot too. How do I do this in a way that I can get there quick and not hurt so much, and just do this how can I hack this, right? Which maybe is counterintuitive to the things we're talking about, but I don't believe so. I think that the reason why I got put on to what I do was so that I could deliver it to people who might be like me, who might have the sore back, who might have the sore knee, who don't want to sit there for 45 minutes before they get into that spot. So what it looks like for me now is, I wake up, do the things like, have some water, use the restroom, and then I lay back down and I go right into a 20 to 30 minute breathwork session. Now, the breathwork session is important because that's what, for me, brings me to total body relaxation. It releases all the neurotransmitters and neurochemicals that I need to be in that state fast, right? So now my body is flooded with beta carboline, DMT, and other neurochemicals that help slip you into that state. From that point, I then put on a guided meditation, or I will guide myself into meditation depending on how I feel that day. And if I'm looking for something specific, like if I want to tap into an abundance meditation, then I'll, put on an abundance meditation, and it doesn't matter to me who it could be. I might go to Joe Dispenza, or I might find something on, YouTube, or I might just, in my own mind, go into what that could feel like or look like in me having it. But the key here is that the correlation happens in the emotion. You have to get into the emotional state. So thinking the thought, I like to think of it like this. If you think about the body as a transmitter, okay, that what transmits past the head is probably like that, right? It's oscillating, here and there, and it's probably going about this far out, which doesn't really, I feel, effectively communicate with more of the field. Now, the heart is where we get the really big spread, right? So the heart will produce an electromagnetic field that can go out as far as 18 feet from the body, which is, pretty far. Now, what they've also found, scientists have proven this, is that there's a medium that exists around us, even in the vacuum. And it's what they call the unified field. And in that unified field, even though we think it's empty space, it's not. It's this oscillation. It's almost like a fluid in there. It's this oscillation of waves that are kind of going in and out and in and out and in and out. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's not bound to time and space. And so if I'm emitting a thought form of a future potential, and I'm emitting an emotional state that correlates with that thought form of that future potential, and I'm interacting in this medium that I'm in, that's this, fluid-like substance called the unified field that can communicate with other parts of itself non-locally. Then what I can do is I can put that vibration out there, and it can travel way beyond 18 feet. Now it can travel across the globe. Now it can travel across the cosmos, because it's not connected to time and space. And so, through quantum entanglement, which they just, again, reproved, and there was a Nobel Prize given for it last year, that you can entangle yourself with that reality. And if by entangling yourself with that reality, you now become connected to it in a way that it can't help but find you. And so that's the process. It takes 45 minutes to an hour. I feel like it's the most important 45 minutes to hour I spend of my day. I prefer to do that than brush my teeth. But because I think it's more important, because it's how I'm communicating with the entirety of creation. And I wake up in the morning and essentially, stand on my proverbial mountaintop, and I yodel my wishes, my intention for the day, and I emit it for the day, and then I walk into it and see what finds me.
Yeah, I love the concept of achieving the heart coherence, because number one, it is key for being able to really emotionally get attached to your own wishes and find your own potential. But I have an app actually on my phone that I just got. Is it the Heart Coherence Institute, where you can actually go, and at any given time, you can set your intention through your heart coherence with a live group globally to actually send that heart coherence out for a variety of different causes, wars, and because they've done studies as well that when seasoned meditators tap into heart coherence together at the same time with a joint intention, they do have the ability to make an impact.
When waves interfere with each other, they amplify.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going on, right? Is that you're emitting a waveform of peace and love and acceptance and whatever that feeling or emotion is that you're emitting, and you're joining another individual wherever they are, and those waveforms are then meeting each other, and then they're amplifying, and that's even creating a greater effect. And that's why when we do meet in groups, and we do this as in numbers, the cumulative effect of it is just staggering.
It's really amazing. So powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah, I love that. Jameel, when we were in Boston with the Owners Club, you went through a little, almost like a guided meditation with the group about gratitude. So gratitude for me is a big part of my millionaire morning, which is what I call my morning routine, which is full of intention and I am affirmations and gratitude and goal setting and visualization visioneering. And I think gratitude is probably the most important part of that part of my morning. And I know it's really important for you as well. So if you could just touch on what gratitude means for you. And if anyone's listening and going, well, I think that I'm grateful for the things in my life, how would somebody go about going deeper into gratitude?
I used to have a hard time with it. And so I get it for anybody who's listening in and being like, I just find a hard time getting there. But here's what I found works: the absence of, right? And so when I take away, for instance, full transparency, I got a DUI, right? Some time ago. And, they put me in the pokey for a couple of days. And I had the absence of all the things, right? Absence of a comfortable bed, absence of a good meal, absence of the embrace of my wife, absence of the love of my children, absence of the love of my dogs, absence of the love of my family, absence of the connection with my business associates, the absence of really gave me an understanding of what it is to have those things, right? And so what gives me hope in anybody who's having a tough time is to think about it from the other polarity, right? What does it look like without? Because truth be told, if you're listening to this right now, that means you've got access to an internet connection. You've got a device in which to listen to it. You're likely in a safe place that's not being bombarded with artillery and other kinds of life-threatening danger. And so you're in a place right now where you have the opportunity to seek any potential. And that is right there something to be eternally grateful for. Because there are people out there right now who don't have that. There are people right now ducking in bomb shelters and extremely terrified of what the next moment will bring. And that's not your reality right now if you're hearing this podcast, because there's nobody I can tell you who's out there being bombed right now that cares to listen to what we have. It doesn't fit in line with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The need in that person's world right now is just physical safety or food or water. Well, survival, right? The hierarchy of needs shows us that when we can satisfy one of those levels, we can then free ourselves to move to the next. And so we're blessed in this part of the world to have those basic levels of survival dealt with. And we have the ability at that point then to move fairly easily out of a survival consciousness into one where we create. And it's in that place where we find our divine spark, where we find the thing that is our gifts, where we find the opportunities to really know what it means to be you at this level. And I think that's what our goal is to really express here is the Jamilness or the Mattiness of what we are, right? Like, and that doesn't mean that it's got to be all good, right? It doesn't mean it has to be good. Like, I think we've also been brainwashed into what we're supposed to, or what's important, what we're supposed to feel is important. Yeah. What's important to you is what's important to you. And it doesn't matter if I think it's important or not. And I think that the reality is consciousness or God or whatever you want to call it is birthing itself into this plane, and it needs to know itself in its entirety as you. And that's with all of your shadow and all of your light. And so leaning into that instead of running away from it could help you really get to that place of gratitude, really tune into, wow, thank you so much for the gift of me. Thank you so much for my curves, my edges, my sharpness, my anger, my rage, my beauty, my compassion, my all of the pieces of me that make me what I am. Thank you for that, because it's different than anybody else, and it's beautiful and unique. And when you can do that, then you really can step into something special. And if you think about it, there's been people in the world who have so little, like look at Helen Keller, for instance, right? She was deaf, blind, and mute. And we all know who she is because of her capacity to transcend and transform limitation and be something of higher, of God quality, of immense importance and purpose, which is what I think actual consciousness has the capacity to do in every form. So as every one of us, there's a opportunity or a version of ourselves that is the highest evolved, or is that is touching or pointing to the highest level of evolution that we can get to. And then in expressing that, we get to be our best and be our fullest. And that's something to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's really important, actually, that you brought up the idea of survival, because I think that so many people, without knowing it, are living in survival, even when they have amazing circumstances. If they were to flip the coin, like you're mentioning, to look at gratitude, but instead they live in a state of tension where the sympathetic nervous system is always in high gear. They're in fight or flight all the time, and they're actually repelling anything good from happening. And so they end up just living in the present moment, not thinking that they can achieve anything more than what they've had, right? And this whole concept of getting to a more enlightened state of mind, that is why we're here. We are here to explore and try to strive for our most enlightened and creative self. And that's just not possible when you're in survival mode.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to think about, you know, the concepts that we're even touching on right now, if you're even just worried about paying the mortgage.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah, no doubt.
100%.
Yeah.
That will trigger it. In this day and age, people are so easily triggered into survival mode, and then they get stuck there.
No, I was just going to say, like, you went into a lot of different topics, even just on the gratitude piece. Yeah. There's so much to unpack there, but you said it really beautifully. You know, the lack thereof. And I think that's a great concept for anyone listening to really get in touch with. I do see that all the time with people who say, I can't go deep. And I like that you explained it and broke it down that way, because I think that's going to be really accessible for anyone who maybe hasn't sat with gratitude before and hasn't really gone deep within themselves to think of all the things in their life that they have to be grateful for. So thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that. I love that you said Joe Dispenza, because we've talked about this in person before, and I know you're a huge fan, as are we. You've been to a retreat, right? You've been to one of Joe's retreats. Many. Yeah, I love that. So it's on our list of things to do.
We'll meet you there.
Tell me, you've gone to these retreats. Have you changed? Has something inside of you changed? What have you gained from those kinds of retreats and doing those things? What happens to you and the person you are when you push yourself so far out of your comfort zone
and out of your body,
yeah, into these realms where you've never been before? What happens?
Well, I mean, it's impossible not to transform, right? It's you're literally putting yourself in the proverbial chrysalis in those types of circumstances, right? Because you go to a Joe Dispenza week long and you're meditating for 50 hours.
Wow.
Which, I mean, it's like your job, you know? You're up at 5 a.m. You start at 6, 7. Sometimes one of the days you start at 4, and you're going, you know, and these things are not, they're not for the faint of heart. Like they're incredibly difficult to sustain and go to, and to go to all of the things. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody. They have tiers of these things. You can go into, you know, the more beginner workshop, and then as you work your way up, you can go into an intermediate week long, and then they have advanced follow-ups. I've done them all, right? And so the change is dramatic, and you know, I have to be careful, because I don't want somebody to fall into the trap I fell into when I went, right? When I first went, I was like, you know, you're in this room of 2,000 people and you're in a meditation, and all of a sudden you start hearing people screaming. Like they're either having a really great orgasm or like the boogeyman is there in front of them or something, you know, like they're just like freaking out. And it's popping off the whole time. It's just like, you're like, what is going on? How come that's not happening to me?
Yeah.
Right. And so you start to get this like strange, like competitive, like, oh my God, am I not worthy enough? Am I not special enough? Am I not enough to experience what that person is feeling or experiencing? And then that becomes its game. That becomes a game in itself that you play. And, you know, when I got there, I played the game for the first week, and nothing really happened for me until the last meditation on the last day, when I abandoned all sense of like, well, I'm doing it for me. And then we were in a coherence healing, and I was working and meditating and sending frequency to somebody in need, somebody who was suffering and sick. And as I sat there and I was, you know, in my heart and in my my fullness of really, really just focusing on the person in front of me, and took my attention off of me totally, is when it happened. Is when I got that you know, the surge of energy, that thing that you know, made people scream and yelp. For me, it was just tears. You know, it was an overwhelming sense of love and a heart opening that I can't really explain in words. You have to experience it to know what that feels like, but it's insane. And then you can see, oh my God, this is real. This is all true. This is all real. And, you know, since I've had visual experiences, and then, you know, I've also dived into the world of psychedelic therapy and had those types of experiences, and I integrate them all together. And, you know, you've got a practice and, you know, an infrastructure on human evolution that I'm walking the path of right now.
I love that.
It's fascinating. I think that experience must make you realize how small you are, but yet how big you are and how connected you are to everything around you.
Know, I would say it not so much small.
No,
it's the exact opposite of that.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of that. Like you come to see and realize that you're really all of it.
Right.
That's awesome. I love
and
that.
Insignificance is the farthest thing from it, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You have a question?
No, I'm processing.
You're processing.
You know, I used to listen to Sadhguru a lot. So I've had it really ingrained in my mind that we're a speck. He always says, you are just a micro speck in the grand scheme of the universe. And so when you start to realize that you are so insignificant, you can shed a lot of your worries and your doubts, because you realize, you know, it's just not worth it. I'm here for such a finite amount of time. And so I can't hold myself as so overly important and have that sense, because when you shed some of that, then you can actually also take a little bit more of a lighthearted approach on life. So now I'm processing it from what you're saying, from actually the opposite point of view of actually, you're not small at all. You're everything. So I'm digesting everything as we're talking.
Yeah. And, you know, to integrate them both together, it's the attachments that are small. It's the perspectives and the things we hold on to that are small. It's the, oh my God, this person stepped on my toe in some way. Or, oh my God, this person, you know, transgressed me in some way, which if you look at it from 30,000 feet means nothing.
Right.
Right. And so that's what I think Sadhguru is trying to get to, is that when we're sitting here and our problems are right here, they seem so big. Right. But when you move back from it and you take a larger perspective, you realize, oh my God, like, think about it. You know, let's do an exercise.
Let's do it.
What was a situation you were in 5 years ago that you thought was insurmountable or just the biggest deal?
Anxiety.
Yeah.
My anxiety.
Just general anxiety, having anxiety. Okay. Seeing it from today, looking back at it, how does it relate?
It's interesting because now I live in gratitude every day that I went through it, because I was literally able to try on myself all of the strategies and learn everything I possibly could about the mind and body to come out on the other end of it and come out with a different personality and a different perspective on myself and the world around me. So today I realized that a big part of who I thought I was actually very fluid. Things about myself that I thought were fixed were in fact choices I was making. And when I was able to shift that around, I became a completely different person. And that's why I'm so passionate about coaching people who have anxiety, because now I can guide them through that path. So today, having, come out on the other side of it, it was an event in my life that caused me to reevaluate everything about how my brain works and my body's response to how my brain works.
Beautiful. And so from the perspective of what it was like when you were staring at it, in it, how different is it?
Night and day. When I was in it, it was insurmountable.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
And today it was the first domino, right? It was the first domino into this unfolding of the, the incredible human you are now. And so that's the thing that we should, God willing, all have the capacity to do. A friend of mine says, if you're ever in it, if you're ever going through it, remember that the longest perspective is the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. The longest perspective is the way. And so take a step back. Okay. Just take a step back for a year, or take 6 months. Great example. Last year, very similar time to where we are in right now. I was in a neck brace. My neck just had basically rebroken, and I was going through a split in my marriage, which was really difficult and painful. And so in the time that I was in it, that was like all I was staring at. And I'm like, I'm unhealthy physically, I'm unhealthy spiritually, I'm unhealthy emotionally, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Like, this is really hard. And I was emotional, and it was tough, and I broke down, and I had meltdowns and all the things, and every single day was like hell. Right? Probably very similar to what it felt like for you when you were dealing with anxiety. And I look at it today and I'm thinking, my gosh, I'm today now healthy. I weigh a lot less than even then. I'm even in better physical shape. I'm in a loving relationship with my ex. That's like so beautiful. We're the best of friends. We see each other nearly every day. It's like, we really are we're better to each other in this version of a relationship than we were when we were in a romantic relationship. Right. And so I see it today and I'm like, wow, what a beautiful thing this has become. And it's so incredible that this was just a year ago. Right. Wow. So a year was incredible. Now, what about 5? And what about 10? And what about 20? And what about on my deathbed?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what will that look like, and what could that be, and how beautiful could that orchestra and the tapestry of how that weaves in, what could that be like? And then that makes you see how insignificant the current thing of, oh, I don't get to kiss you anymore. That's like that moment was like terrible, but it's like now it's like, no, what a beautiful way for us to carry and transform, a version of love into another. And what a beautiful thing for me to be able to push myself into better and greater health by having a hardship. And I think that's just how it works here, right? Nothing grows before it's torn apart.
I love that. Jamil, that was powerful, man. Thank you for sharing. I was there. I watched online. I was part of the Sub 2 community. So I was watching your journey, sending thoughts and prayers. But I'm curious, and I always wanted to ask you, were you on your personal development journey a year ago in that time? Did you have certain elements and things that you were drawing on through the darkest time? And if you did, could you share some of the things that really helped you through that time?
Yeah, it absolutely was. And and that's what probably made it even harder for me, because I'm like, I shouldn't have to go through this. What about all the work I'm doing? And well, I should be exempt. It's like, no, you shouldn't, motherfucker. What do
Yep.
you think? Like, you got to get through this. This is life. Life is not going to be perfect. It's going to be all the things. And the moment that you stop realizing that it's going to be all of it, that waves have peaks and valleys, and it's the reality of life. And life is a wave.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is. It's all frequency. It's all a wave. It's all a wave. And so it's going to have peaks. It's going to have valleys. It's going to have ups. It's going to have downs. You're going to feel great. You're going to feel like crap. It's all going to be there. But what a beautiful variety of emotion and feeling. Because I can tell you this, imagine if you could feel nothing for eternity, right? Imagine if you were just a thing that felt nothing for eternity, and you got to glimpse childbirth. Would you say, okay, I'll do that? I just want to feel that. That looks so deep and rich and excruciating, but still I've felt nothing. So I want to try that.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe you might even choose, well, that person over there, they seem to be getting murdered. That looks super painful and terrible, but I've felt nothing. I've felt nothing for all eternity. Maybe I'll try that. And then also there's the sense of like holding your loved one and just being in an embrace of a lover. And if you've felt nothing for all of eternity and you got to see that, maybe you'd point at that and say, I want to try that. And then maybe if you were looking at that same thing and then you got to see what it looked like and felt like when that heart broke, but you were in eternity and you felt nothing, maybe you'd look at that and say, I want to try that. And I think that's what's going on, right? So even though I was in that, going through it, what I had to come to terms was that, oh, this is a variety. I'm in a charcuterie board of emotions in this life, and I've got to eat the olive, and I got to eat the hot banana pepper, and I got to have the salami, and I got to have the cheese, and I got to have the nuts, and I got to have the thing that chips my tooth, and I got to have all of this because it's this the smorgasbord of what this whole thing is. And so, I don't get to, if my job here is to eat the whole charcuterie board, some of the stuff I'm going to like, and some of it's going to taste like ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's I love it. It is, you're right. Life is all the things, and accepting that and embracing that it is, like you said, a wave. There is ups and there is downs, and what a beautiful, actually looking at it from a perspective of gratitude, like you say, that we can feel all the feels, right? That's in itself is a gift, right?
It really is. And it's like, that's the thing I think we just get too stuck in, is like, I just want it to be good all the time. Well, I mean, how do I know what's good if I don't know what's bad?
Yeah,
how do I know how great I feel now if I can't remember how shitty I felt last year?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And there's so much growth that comes with experiencing all of those feelings that terrify us and bring us down and make us feel not so great, but being able to push through and develop that resilience and grow as a human and get to the next level of how you can feel emotionally and get to that next level of your conscious awareness and get to that next level in life where, you really feel that growth.
Amen.
Jamil, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. This has been amazing.
I have goosebumps, actually.
I mean, can we have you back? Because at any moment, man, I freaking love talking to you. I love being around you. I have always looked up to you. I love what you do. I love what you do with PACE in our community. You are such a giver. and a leader. And I love that you're in touch with your spirituality. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and I'd be happy to be back. So if you guys want me back, I'll come anytime.
Oh,
Love
can't
it.
wait.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.